Okay, so a little while back, I put out the usual question of, what do you want to know? Having any issues with any of your animals, and we'll talk about it. So, one that came back from actually multiple people is a very basic, very common issue, which is how you get them to listen. It's pretty much the core of all the training, and it is a little bit nuanced. I'm going to try to cover the big bulk of it, or the core of it, I guess, but it is a very, very nuanced thing, I guess to say, especially using the positive reinforcement training. Now, we use positive reinforcement because we do know through studies that it is the most efficient way for an animal to learn. Also, it has the best memory retention, which what I mean by that is you train something with positive reinforcement, and years later, it will remember how to do the thing that you asked it to do. If you use more aversive techniques, chances are the memory will not last as long, or at least be as strong later down the road. Now, I say positive reinforcement a lot. This is because what we're using is known as operant conditioning. Operant conditioning basically is a psychology, and it says there's 4 ways of learning. You break everything into, think of it like a grid, and you have positive and negative on one side, and on the top you have reinforcement and punishment. Now, none of these mean good, none of these mean bad. We're just looking at the very basics of what it is. Positive doesn't necessarily mean good, like a lot of people think, as I was kind of just said. It means adding. So we're adding something to the situation. Negative, on the other hand, of course, means you're taking something away. Then reinforcement is anything that increases a behavior, and punishment is anything that decreases a behavior. Now, if it doesn't fall into the punishment or the reinforcement categories, then that means it's not changing the actual behavior of the animal, and it doesn't really matter. It's not affecting, one way or the other, what we're trying to accomplish. So, really, we want to stay in the realm of positive reinforcement, which means you're adding something to the situation. The easiest thing that we'll be adding, of course, is rewards or treats, food items that we'll be giving to the animals for the reward of for doing what we want them to do. But it doesn't always have to be food. It can be anything that the dog wants. It could be a toy. A lot of canine units, for example, use tennis balls. They prefer dogs that are known for having what is known as a ball drive. It can be attention. Anything that the dog wants can be the reward. Think of it like a payment. Now, we're going to take these reinforcers, we're going to attach them to something else, what's known as a secondary reinforcer, because it's not the primary reinforcer, which is the food, the toy, whatever that they want. This is going to be something that's going to be associated with it. I can click this all day long to a dog, and it won't mean anything. But once I program it in, you'll start seeing reactions whenever the dogs hear that noise. Because now these two know that something good is coming. Or all 4 of you, actually, huh? There you go. Here you go, Oscar. There you go. Right in front of you, buddy. Right there. Alright, so they all know that something good was coming from the click. Now, obviously I just did that randomly, so they're kind of wondering, well, what was that for? Well, don't care. Give me the treats. Usually you don't want to click when you're not actually asking them to do things, or when you don't know what they're doing, because you could be reinforcing a behavior you don't necessarily want. In this case, they were all just chilling on the bed. No big deal, no harm, no foul. Also, that doesn't happen that often, so I'm not too worried about it. But over time, you click, reward, click, reward, click, reward, click, reward. This has now turned into the most basic form of communication, which is yes. The most basic form of communication is yes and no. We even do it with computers with binary, yes and no. Boom, that's the simplest form of communication. You're doing the thing right, you're doing the thing wrong. So we teach them by showing them when they are doing the right thing. As they do the things that are correct, click, and then payment. Are you done looking for treats? No, we're still hunting. So, click and then payment, click and then payment as they do the behaviors that we want. Now, the nuances come when we start talking about approximations, which is kind of when they get closer to doing the things that we want, but they're not exactly doing the full behavior that we want, but they're getting closer. And we get them closer and closer by telling them kind of a hot or cold game with the clicks. Now, this click, the timing is everything. I've heard somebody say, I can't remember who it was, that the difference between a good trainer and a great trainer is like 0.3 milliseconds. You don't have to be that good. But it just shows you how important timing is. If you really want to get those SeaWorld behaviors, like just amazing behaviors that on cue at the right time, almost 100% of the time, then you're going to need the perfect timing, the perfect communication with the animal. But for most home situations, all you need is just to get close. And my job is to get you close. So I actually focus on my clients to get the timing correct. And we work together, we start getting it better and better and better. And I start marketing the client, and the client gets excited when they get it right, and I'm excited when they get it right, and these goobers are excited when people get it right. So that's really the big thing. Now the other thing, you have to get the timing, you have to tell them when they are doing it right. Also, you do need to, when you are training, you need to reward them. If you stop getting a paycheck, will you keep going into work? Well, I guess some people are finding out right now. But overall, your work is going to diminish when you don't get paid. So,
in case you forgot, return this thing.
You need to reward when you're training. Now, does that mean you have to keep treats with you all the time? No. But it does mean you have to practice every day. Because one of the things that we're doing with this operant condition is we're rewiring the dog's brain to want to do the behaviors that we want them to do. The behavior being sit, when I say sit. Also, I usually also attach them to a hand signal as well. Because dogs are very body language oriented. So, if you attach it to a hand signal, they're faster on the pickup of figuring it out. Then, of course, they'll add the language later. This is because dogs don't talk. They only have barks to communicate. So usually, most of the time, they're using body language to communicate with one another. Okay, so we have operant conditioning, the positive reinforcement, positive punishment, negative reinforcement, negative punishment. Now, we're going to veer away from the other three as much as possible. Occasionally, I will wander into the negative punishment kind of area, which basically means I'm taking away something that the dog wants. Usually what it is I start using distance. So it starts going farther away, and when they do things right, it gets closer. And then they really quickly figure that out. So timing and really associating with something like this. Now, people are using bridges, which is one term we use for it, or secondary reinforcer, or markers, or clickers, all the time. They just don't realize it. When you say good boy, good girl, you are, in a sense, using this bridge technique. However, the reason I don't just stick with good boy, good girl is because, A, our voices kind of fluctuate, which means it takes it harder for the brain to like wrap around and get the neurons set to that noise. Also, you might have multiple people in the house. That also changes and makes it tougher for that to kind of lock in. Plus, we know that these sharp noises, the brain has a habit of picking out faster. So we associate this with the reward, with the treat, and that marks the exact moment that they did it right. That's another part, is that exact moment. That timing thing is huge and crucial. If you do it at the wrong time, you could actually be training the whole wrong behavior, or they just might not be getting it. And good boy, that's a long time as far as the brain is concerned with making associations. So we use the click for time, we use it for consistent noise, and also a nice sharp noise. Does it have to be a clicker? No. We can attach it to just about any sound, and I've seen a number of different sounds used for a bridge or for various cues, which a bridge is not a cue. That's one thing we can talk about on another day. But that's the way we do it. We really lock in on what the yes and the no is, and then real quickly the dog starts figuring it out. If you have any other questions, let me know. Once again, Buckman Bestial Behaviors. You can find me And you guys have a great rest of your day.